Welcome everyone to a Directions Mag Geospatial webinar, today sponsored by Geocortex. I am Barbary Duke, Managing Editor here at Directions Mag, joined by my assistant webinar producer, Lynette Qualia. If you have any questions, just drop us a note in the chat. We'll do our best to help you. We appreciate the geospatial community stopping by often at directionsmag.com for feature articles, daily news, and of course, more webinars. We're standing by to take your questions today. Type those into the question box at any time during the webinar. See something you like on the screen, you can click that little photo camera button, and that will save an image to your computer. We are recording today's webinar, so keep an eye on your inbox for more information. We also appreciate your participation on our polls in the post-webinar survey. There's also an attendance certificate available to you after the webinar. We are excited to welcome back Patrick Fingler at Geocortex. He's here today to show us how Web AppBuilder with ArcGIS can help us with our workflows. So there's a great app to add into your Web AppBuilder called Geocortex Workflow, and he is going to show us all the ins and outs to make us more efficient. Patrick, welcome. We are glad to have you with us today and excited to learn more.
Thanks, Barbary. Yeah, she mentioned my name is Patrick Fingler. I'm a technical sales specialist, and today I'm going to show you how organizations can create powerful widgets for Esri's Web AppBuilder for ArcGIS using Geocortex Workflow. So Geocortex is a product that's part of a suite of products offered by our parent organization, Widgets. And our mandate here is to allow organizations to accomplish even more using Esri's ArcGIS through a configuration over approach as opposed to custom development. So we were established in 1999. Our headquarters are in Victoria, Canada, which I'm calling in from today. And Geocortex, what we do here is we offer off-the-shelf web and mobile GIS software, as well as training, professional services, and technical support. And we work with a number of customers across different verticals. We've got about 1,400 organizations worldwide that leverage Geocortex, and what they have in common is that they're running into limitations and they want to extend their web GIS applications and go even further to create very specific solutions for their end users. I mentioned we do have a variety of different organizations that we work with in a variety of different verticals, from local government to oil and gas, utilities, water, public safety, transportation, and all of these organizations have different requirements and they require different tools and different solutions. So Web AppBuilder for ArcGIS is a great tool for allowing you to quickly stand up a web GIS application, but sometimes you want to go further and you want to create a very specific tool for a particular business process, and that's where you can use Geocortex to accomplish that instead of doing custom development. So we're first going to jump into a poll here. I just want to gauge our audience and attendees to determine how are you currently using or extending Web AppBuilder. Are you using the out-of-the-box widgets that ship with Web AppBuilder? Are you downloading custom widgets available on GeoNet, which is an Esri community? Are you developing custom widgets in-house or maybe having contractors develop them for you? Are you using Geocortex to configure and create your custom widgets? Or are you currently not using Web AppBuilder for ArcGIS and just interested in learning more about it?
All right, so folks are making their selections. We'll give them a couple more seconds and then share these interesting results. All right, so 67% are using out of the box. And then we've got 3 there, maybe coming in at about second place. They're either downloading or developing, or we've got several folks that aren't using that yet. So that's great. They're in the right place, Patrick.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. It's good to see that folks are using and leveraging the out-of-the-box widgets that Esri provides, and it looks like there's a number of folks who are actually developing their own custom widgets as well. I want to offer an alternative to doing that custom development, and so you can actually do it yourself using a configuration framework, and that's called Geocortex Workflow, which allows you to build these widgets without coding. So just a brief overview of what Geocortex Workflow is. It's a web-based designer that you can log into with your ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise identity to create these user-driven smart forms that your end users can interact with as custom widgets inside of Web AppBuilder. These could be for searching for data, filtering assets, editing, running geoprocessing tasks, and we really emphasize the configuration over customization approach. So, upgrades are easy, and you get all of the flexibility of custom development without the drawbacks and hassle of it as well. Again, we are Esri Platinum partners here at Geocortex, which is really important for our organizations to ensure we're aligned with Esri's modern direction. And the workflows and widgets that you build are, in a way, essentially future-proofed as they're engineered to work in both Esri's 3.x JavaScript API as well as their 4.x JavaScript API. And I'll be talking a little bit about that later. With that, that's pretty much as much slides I want to cover. I want to get into the meat of things here. So let's dive into a demo. So here you can see this is a web app builder for ArcGIS application, and I'm currently referencing a web map. This is a more public safety scenario, and this web map has some parcels as well as some damage assessments being reported as this community got recently hit by a flood. So field workers are tasked to use Web AppBuilder out in the field when they're connected and submit and search for damage assessments. Now, there are a variety of tools, out-of-the-box tools that Web AppBuilder provides that might help this process. There's an out-of-the-box edit widget. They've got a select widget, a query widget as well available. But maybe these field workers, they're not GIS savvy. They want a very intuitive experience for searching for this, these assets, editing them, creating new features, and deleting them. So here, what I've done using our workflow technology is I've added a custom widget that provides a very nice, smart form interface that allows these field workers to find assessments, create an assessment, edit an assessment, delete an assessment, all within one contained widget. So the user can click next here to find assessments, and then they're brought to a new form where they can choose, how they want to find these assessments on the map. Do they want to select them? Do they want to search by a particular damage type, by their name as the assessor, by all of the assessments that have been completed between this date and that date, or by doing a buffer? And again, because this is a framework, you could add a new option here if your field worker said, hey, it would be great if we had this other option. Now, as I go through this, I'll show you what it looks like actually in the back end. So if I click back here, you can see we first have this form being displayed, and all of this is created in this web-based designer interface. Now, this is Geocortex Workflow, and you can actually navigate to this web-based designer by going to apps.geocortex.com. And here you can see we've got other products that we offer, but here as an end user or a GIS creator or developer, you can click launch to launch into Geocortex Workflow. And then it'll prompt you to either log in with your ArcGIS Online account or log in with ArcGIS Enterprise. So this is a web-based designer that you can use to start rapidly building out these custom widgets. What you'll see here on the left, these are what we call activities. These are kind of little components that you can string together to build some logic for your end users. We've got your typical programming logic like if statements and for each loops and so on, to more GIS operations like getting the current user who's logged in, doing buffers, getting field workers locations, to querying layers, running geoprocessing tasks, routing, feature editing. Again, there's tons and tons of activities in here, and central to this is our display form activity, where you can actually design the forms that your end users interact with. So this is the workflow that I'm currently running. And if I was to double click this display form here, you'll see this is the initial form that the user is greeted with. They've got an image, a checkbox, and some drop-down lists. And if I wanted to, I could just drag and drop additional form elements into this kind of form interface, connect it to some logic, and then we can create a very tailored experience for our end users. And here you can see there's branching available. So if, depending on the selection that I choose, it'll take me to this section if I'm searching for features, and you can continue to have logic as you build out this flow chart. So I kind of consider this very, visual programming. You don't have to be a JavaScript developer by any means to tie and build these workflows out. It's all very, nice and logic driven. And best of all, when you're happy with the workflow, it's going to be stored inside of your ArcGIS Online or your ArcGIS Enterprise as an item, and you can actually choose, which groups of users have access to this underlying workflow. So that's just kind of the back end of it. So let's continue to run through this. So I might want to find assessments, and I'm going to search maybe by assessor. Maybe I'll enter my name. So here I've got an autocomplete box. If I select Patrick Fingler and click next, it's going to highlight all of the assessments that I've completed. And here we're actually doing a form of an integration. So one of the nice things that Workflow does is being able to integrate with different systems as well. So here I'm actually displaying Google Street View imagery. As I hover over each of these parcels, you can see, or assessments that have been performed, you can see we've got Google Street View imagery being displayed, which makes it easy to for an end user to identify, which one they're interested in. So maybe I'm interested in these two assessments. I could further filter this as well. Maybe I'm only interested in the ones that are major damage and so on. And let's continue and maybe generate a report. So a lot of our customers too is they'll use Geocortex Workflow as the front end to allow their end users to search for assets and information, and then they'll generate a report based on the assets that they've selected and so on. So in this process, what we're doing is we're generating a assessment report based on these two assessments that I've selected using our other Geocortex reporting technology, which I'm not going to touch on today, but it's again a web-based designer that you can log into to design these reports that you can kind of call from Geocortex Workflow. So here you can see we've got our report available. And here I've got a nice assessment report. It's got some attachments being displayed. We've got, some address information and so on. And, I could even further extend this workflow by providing another option to, email that report. But let's go ahead and return to start here. So that was just one option. Let's return to start. And again, I'm still in the same widget. I might want to now create a new assessment. So you can also create new features as well. So let's click next. I'll enter my name as the assessor, specify the evaluation. So maybe there's been some minor flooding damages, 4 feet. I could upload an attachment if I wanted to as well. So there's some flooded roads here. And then let's add a location. So maybe I'm inspecting this this house over here. And again, what it's doing is when I select that point, we're also retrieving the address information for that point. And again, if I wanted to, I could extend this further and give the user the option to use their geolocation to create this this location, or select a location on the map. So we'll click next here, and you can see what the workflow did is it created a new Esri feature. Given the form information that I entered, the address got auto-populated, the flood depth and so on all got populated. And then I'm also given the option to generate a report on that assessment. When I return to start, I also can edit assessments as well. So I'm not going to run through all of these options, but here I could, if I wanted to, I could select a couple of assessments, maybe 2. And you'll see here we've got some validation built into the workflow. So it's saying that I'm only allowed to actually select 1 feature to edit. I've got too many properties selected. So I could then change that and select this feature, click next, and now we're pulling information from that asset. So I might want to update the evaluation to major damage because it looked like there was a ton of flooding. You know, it's still a single family home. We could say that there's major flooding damages. I could change the attachment if I wanted to, but I'll click next. And here you'll see now it's no longer orange, it's red, it's been updated, and it's major damage, and my notes all got passed through. And then last but not least, I could delete this if I wanted to. So maybe I want to delete some of these features. We're sending them to the attribute table so I can confirm all of their attributes. Yep, looks good. So I'm happy with that, and I'll click next. And now if I clear my selection, you can see that they're no longer available. So that's an example of a workflow where you're searching for features, creating new features, editing features, all wrapped into one single widget. How you actually build these out is again done with this workflow designer. So let's maybe create a very basic workflow from scratch. So what you'll see here is if I go to File, New, there's here it's just single signing me on with my identity. So here you can see that there's a number of samples you can choose from. So maybe I want to build out a buffer workflow. So I'll click Create here. And you can see immediately what it's done is it's built me a form that's got this geometry picker, it's got a number, it's got a drop-down list. I could add new items to this. Maybe I want a user to upload a file or enter a password or something like that. But I'm going to keep this as the default for right now. If I was to immediately just test and see what this looks like, before adding it to Web AppBuilder, we do have this sandbox environment where you can connect your own web maps to it and start prototyping your workflows even before you add them to Web AppBuilder. So here you can see we're using Esri's 3.x JavaScript API, but our workflows can also work in the 4.x JavaScript API as well. So if I run this workflow, it'll just ask me to select a point, enter in my buffer distance, enter in the unit. And when I do a buffer, nothing's really happening. It's just displaying some graphics on the map. So let's go back to my workflow and I could start editing this. So maybe I want to make it, ask the user to select a point, and I could add some underscores to make it bold, choose a distance. You're always wanting to simplify these forms and select a unit for the buffer. You're always wanting to simplify these. You can also add default values as well. So maybe I want my default buffer value to be 150 meters, and I can set the precision to 0, so it's just there's no decimals. And then let's select the units to be meters. So I'll select my index to be 2, which is 0, 1, and 2. It's 0 based. So there, when I click save, I can now save this as a new workflow if I wanted to. I could call this directions mag buffer and click save. And now this workflow is being stored as an item back inside of my ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise, and then I can add it to Web AppBuilder. Let's just quickly rerun this workflow in the sandbox environment, and you can see immediately those changes have been added. I haven't adjusted any of the logic yet, but those changes have been implemented. So now how we add this to Web AppBuilder is if I go to Web AppBuilder, here I'm in the administrative interface for Web AppBuilder. This is the developer edition of Web AppBuilder, but you can also add our tools and widgets to the version that ships with ArcGIS Enterprise. Unfortunately, the version of Web AppBuilder that comes with ArcGIS Online just isn't extensible at the moment, so you can't yet add any custom widgets to it. But here we can navigate to the widgets controller. If I click plus, you can see here we've got some of our widgets that we offer available. And if I click on workflow, you can see I can then choose workflows that are stored in my content. I can find workflows that have been shared with me through my organization, public workflows, and here I'll search for Directions Mag. And immediately you can see this is my buffer workflow. So we'll click OK. I could give this a name if I wanted to. And then here I've got that same workflow being displayed. Now let's go ahead and add some logic to this. So let's go back to our workflow designer. And here you can see I've got these two options, submit and cancel. So maybe what I'll want to do is I'll say if they submit the form, we'll then perform the buffer. Otherwise, we'll exit it. So again, just using our tools here, I can move this logic to the side. I can add a little if statement. And how you pass information or retrieve information from one activity to another is by referencing these outputs. So here I can say if I can search for my display form activity. So this is the ID of it. And if I add a period, I can say if the result, we can expand this if we wanted to, equals submit, then we'll continue and we'll do the buffer. Otherwise, we'll exit it. Also, to clean up your workflows, you can add these like containers to group logic together. So I could, cut all of this and paste this in this container to make my workflow a little bit more organized as well. So I could say, if it's submitted, then we'll do a buffer. Otherwise, we'll just exit the workflow. But I might want to also clean some buffer graphics. So what the logic's doing here is it's performing a buffer. It's getting some symbol from symbology from a JSON RGB text, and then we're creating a feature, and then we're adding some graphics to the map called buffer task sample. So I'm going to copy this value, and I'm going to just search for the clear graphics activity, and I'll say when we exit, we'll clear the graphics and paste that in. And then I'll also copy this, and I'll say anytime we rerun the workflow, we'll also clear these graphics as well. And last but not least, let's first save this and run this in Web AppBuilder. So we'll go ahead and I'll click cancel. Right now I'm getting an error because it didn't cancel successfully. But if I rerun this and add a point, and perform a buffer, you can see here it's orange. And I could change the color of this buffer if I wanted to. I could go into this Esri symbol playground. I can design the color of my graphics. It'll output this nice little JSON file. And I can copy that, throw that into my workflow, which we have over here. And let's adjust this and just paste that in. And now my buffer is going to be a different color. And we can even go further. And I could add another form to query any hydrants that are within that buffer. So I'll add another form here. I'll add an item picker, and then we'll perform an ArcGIS query, and I'll adjust this query to essentially query all of the hydrants within that buffer. I can use a get layer activity to retrieve the fire hydrants layer, and I can pass that into my query activity, which essentially just mirrors the REST endpoint. So I'll do layer.layer, and then I'll pass in my my buffer geometry as my where clause, and maybe set the output fields just to object ID. We'll return geometry, and we'll set my label to be the object ID. So I'm going through this fast, but again, we've got training and documentation available. And then let's go back to our workflow here. Let's rerun it, add a location on the map. Let's perform a buffer. And here you can see now I've got all of the hydrants that intersected my buffer. I've got my buffer colors changed colors, and I've started to change my workflow around. So let's show a couple examples just in the next minute or two, just to show you some other examples of our workflow tools. So here I've got an example that allows an end user to inspect hydrants. So here we can select our location, which is the same process that I showed. When I selected that point, you can see the forms can also be dynamic. So it actually showed a new option here. I can perform a buffer. It'll return any hydrants within that buffer. And when I select these hydrants, I've also added logic that'll route me to those hydrants. So when I select a different hydrant, it'll route me to that hydrant from my selected geolocation. So you can do routing, and I can view previous station values if I wanted to, or I can do a new inspection. Enter my name as Patrick Fingler. We'll say the hydrant is in poor condition, and I can click submit. And now what I'm doing is I'm actually editing a related table. So here you can see this is the hydrant asset. We've got some related records, and my records all got passed through, like my comments and information. And then I can integrate with other systems as well. So in this scenario, I'm going to create a work order that's connected to CityWorks, but this could be connected to Novotics Elements XS. It could be SAP, any kind of asset management system. So in this scenario, I'm logging into it. It's showing me all of the work orders from CityWorks. Maybe we want to paint it because it's a bit rusty. And when I click create work order, it's going to send a web request to CityWorks, and then it's actually creating this as a feature inside of CityWorks from Web AppBuilder. So again, when I talk about integrations, that's another thing that the workflow tools does really well. So you can provide a front-end interface for your Web AppBuilder widgets, and then you can use workflow as the front end and capabilities. So here you can see we're in CityWorks. My instructions got added, and it's been completed. The last thing I wanted to just quickly touch on were our resources. So if you want to learn more, I've got tons of other examples that I can show. We've got lots of examples here. These are individual widgets that we've added that do different business processes. But if you want to learn more about using Geocortex Workflow, if that's kind of piqued your interest, we can navigate to this documentation center. Here you can see these are some of the other products that we offer. You got a sneak peek on the reporting tools. Here you can see we've got our Geocortex Workflow product. And then here, there's you can learn about what's new with the technology. We're always adding new capabilities every 2 months to the Geocortex Workflow product. Additionally, there's videos available. Here you can see we've got a YouTube channel that walks you through tutorials on how to build workflows. We also have a developer center as well as training courses available as well. So this is our developer center. So there is also an SDK for workflow if you want to dive under the hood and even go further and add your own form elements and activities as well. So hopefully that's gave you a sneak peek with how you can rapidly build custom widgets using a framework approach as opposed to custom development. And again, if you are interested in learning more, we do have these resources available. I encourage you to check those out. And we do have 60-day free trials available, so you can just navigate to apps.geocortex.com to try out the software. So with that, I want to thank Barbary and the Directions Mag team. I hope that was informative, and I'm looking forward to any questions that any of the attendees might have.
Yeah, so we're tight on time here, Patrick, but let's get started with, you mentioned some reporting capabilities through your demos, and they'd like to know, is that included?
So the reporting capabilities aren't included with workflow, but we do have a a builder or an edition available for Web App Builder called the Geocortex Builder edition, which includes Geocortex Workflow, reporting, and a printing tool as well. I'm seeing some other questions here. So, hi, are the widgets you developed, are they using JSON? So yes, the backend scripting language is JavaScript, and you can actually export those workflows as a JSON file. We've got questions about the cost of it. So I myself, I'm a technical sales specialist, so we can definitely follow up with you regarding price. We've got questions about sharing workflows between ArcGIS Online and Portal. Does this work with shared content in a collaboration? So the workflows that you create are stored as items in ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. So you can share those items using collaboration features, and you can also, if you wanted to, export them as raw JSON as well. And it looks like we're still getting more questions about the cost. So that's good to see that folks are interested in it.
Yeah.
Again, I think we'll have to do follow-up in regards to that.
Absolutely. So you also mentioned custom widgets with other Esri products. Any information about Experience Builder?
Yeah, for sure. So what I showed you today was the workflow widgets running inside of Web App Builder, which is based on the 3.x JavaScript API. So Experience Builder is Esri's kind of next generation of Web App Builder. That's based on the 4.x JavaScript API, and the workflows are designed to work in both environments. We don't yet have a widget available for Experience Builder, but it's something that's definitely on the roadmap. And the same workflow running in your Web App Builder environment should continue to work in Experience Builder once we have that widget available.
All right. So I know that there are more questions here, but we are definitely out of time. So Patrick and the team over at Geocortex will follow up with you individually with your questions. So no worries. You will get your questions answered. We appreciate Patrick being here today. We appreciate all of you joining us, and hope that you will stop by often. Remember that the webinars are recorded and archived, so keep an eye on your inbox. Also pick up those attendance certificates. Appreciate your opinions on the survey, and hope that you will tell a friend about Geocortex and Directions Magazine, and have a great day. Thanks, everybody.